wanted me first to kind of talk about my journey and how I got published and how I got started and everything. So I'll start out with that, and then I'll go into my talk. So, how did this begin? So I've been writing forever, since I was like 5 years old. I wrote everything from poetry to song lyrics to plays to, I used to write news stories. Like if I were a news anchor, I would write anything I could. Never thought I could actually be a writer. I thought you had to be either a genius or an alcoholic, and I'm neither. So I didn't think I could be a writer. And when I was in high school, my best friend and I would go to Tasty Freeze every day after school and write for hours. They hated us. We would take up this whole corner booth with papers everywhere. And honestly, when I look back, that's like the funnest time of my life. You know, everybody else is out partying, but no, we're at Tasty Freeze writing. It was awesome. So anyway, so then I, graduated high school, and the real world came rushing in, and I met my husband, and we just had our 33rd anniversary. So I'm thinking about keeping him. I don't want to jump into anything, but so he's pretty great. But so then we had kids, and my oldest son was born deaf. So I ended up moving to Albuquerque. We're from Portales. I ended up moving to Albuquerque to put him in school. So I ended up going to school. I got a degree at UNM, and in sign language interpreting. So then I was an interpreter for years. But I kind of, while I was in school and doing all that, I kind of gave up the whole writing thing, because I thought I need to face reality. That's just a silly pipe dream. It's not really going to happen. And as soon as I graduated college, we moved back to Portales. So my husband was still in Portales. We had business there. And I lived up here with the boys, and for 7 years, we went back and forth every weekend, so I could see my husband. That's probably why we lasted 33 years. I didn't actually live with him for 7 of those, so. But it was pretty great. And I don't know, as soon as I graduated, it was like, that was off me, and of course I immediately started writing again. It's like, once it's in you, you can't get rid of it. And I think what really inspired me was that saying that, if you write 1 page a day, at the end of the year, you'll have a novel. So I was like, dude, I can do that. I can write 1 page a day, surely. So I started writing my first manuscript, which is my Under the Bed manuscript. It was a historical romance. I love romance. And then I went back to young adult. I've written young adult most of my life. And I wrote, I forgot the name of it. It's called Riley's Switch Forever, based on this fake town. But anyway, Death and the Girl Next Door, that's what it's called. Oh my gosh. And we changed it way later, so. And I wrote that, never really did anything with that, didn't think much about it. With my historical romance, I sent it out to 1,000 agents and got rejection after rejection. And I decided at that time, this was quite a while ago, that I wanted to be traditionally published. So I went for that agent thing first. And of course, it's actually harder to get an agent than it is to get published. I didn't know that. So then I started the first Charlie book. And was laying in bed one morning, and honest to God, Charlie just popped into my head in all her glory. She is crazy. She's so fun to write, because, and when people read my books and they come up to me and they think I'm going to be funny, and I'm just not. Charlie's funny. I don't know. I'm just not really that funny. And so I jumped up out of bed, and my husband was in the shower, and I pulled the shower curtain back on, and I said, I'm going to be published. I just knew that Charlie was going to do it. I just had that feeling. And so I started writing. So that would have been my 3rd manuscript. I got about 6 chapters in. I had a critique group at that time, so I was trying not to do it like I normally do it. So I have a weird process. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to write the book. I've got to sit down. I am a plotter, like insane. Like my outlines are 40 to 60 pages long. I have to plot every single second. Now, I don't stick to that. Don't get me wrong. But as long as I kind of know where I'm going, I almost always write the end before I write the beginning. The beginning is the hard part for me. So I was trying not to do that this time, and that was the wrong thing to do. Don't mess with your process. If you have a process, just go with it. So I got about 6 chapters in and just got stuck and put it aside for 2 years. So 2 years later, I was a member of RWA with Sarah and Romance Writers of America, and they have a contest called the Golden Heart, and that is for unpublished, and then they have the Rita, that is for published. And I thought, well, the Golden Heart, they only judge the first 50 pages, but you have to have the whole thing written. I thought this wouldn't final in my wildest dreams. It would never final, but if I entered the Golden Heart, it's going to force me to finish the book. So that's why I did it. So I entered the Golden Heart, and then I was so mad because it was $50. $50 I wasted. I was so mad that I wasted that money. Then, of course, I didn't finish the book for about 2 weeks. The deadline was 2 weeks away, and I was like, okay, I spent the money, I've got to do this. So I wrote the rest of the book in 2 weeks, so you can imagine what it looked like. Thank God they don't judge the rest of the book. It was bad. And but then I thought that I'd missed the deadline. And I was like, well, crap, I missed it, so, there went $50. So I went online and I had 2 more days. So I would have to overnight it, which would cost me another $50. And I was so mad at myself. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Well, then some friend told me that they're like, dude, if you enter and you don't send your book in, you're going to get in trouble. Looking back, what are they going to do? But at the time, I was terrified. I was like, I got to get this book in, So I spent another $50, was so mad, overnighting it, got it in. I was furious. I wasted $100. I thought it was the stupidest thing I've ever done. So I'm an interpreter, remember that. So I am in state testing with my little client. And you cannot have your phone when you're in state testing. Of course, it's in my purse and on vibrate and everything, and it kept vibrating, and we're doing all this stuff, and I'm like, oh God, it wouldn't stop. So she's working on her stuff, so I could pick my phone up, and I'm looking, and I get a message from my husband, and he said, you finaled in some contests, and I'm like, what contest? I haven't entered any contests. I had before, but I hadn't at that time. And he said, I don't know, it's like the golden something or other, and I almost fell out of my chair. Now, the reason is because the Golden Heart is very prestigious, and it gets you a lot of attention. Just finaling gets you a lot of attention. If I hadn't finaled, I would not be where I'm at today, put it that way. And for the first time in my life, agents were coming to me. It was a very surreal experience. And so I thought, I've got to take advantage of this. It would be stupid not to. So as soon as my client finished her thing, I jumped up and I was crying and everything. And so it was very Cinderella, very whirlwind thing going on. And I decided I had to finish it. And well, I finished it, but had to get it polished, because it's pretty bad. And so I spent the next 2 months polishing it and researching agents and all this stuff. And again, I had about 3 agents who had come to me wanting to look at it, not wanting it, but wanting to look at it. So I finally, and I have a whole other, I have crazy agent stories, but that would take too long, so I'm not going to tell you those. But agents can be a little different. But most of them were just so awesome and so amazing. And I sent it out to 20 of my dream agents, and in 1 week I had 8 offers. After nothing, no, we wouldn't even look at you, So it was very stressful. It was probably the most stressful week of my life, because they're calling me at all hours, and they're some of them are really high pressure salespeople, kind of like, this one got me on the phone and he was like, well, why wouldn't you sign with me right now? Why wouldn't you? And he would not get off the phone. I was on the phone with him for an hour, and he kept wanting an answer. Why won't you sign with me right now? Why won't you? I'm like, because I have 5 other offers, and I have more people waiting, and So it was very surreal. So after that week, I chose my incredible agent. I've never regretted my decision, Alexandra Machinist. She's now at ICM New York. She's amazing, by the way, and So then we go to the RW Nationals. Okay, that's where the award ceremony is and everything. So it's literally ball gowns and limos and the whole thing. It's like the Academy Awards of romance writers. And we go there, and my shoes were hurting my feet, and so I took them off. Never again. The fact that I finaled, I broke all of their rules. I thought there's no way I would ever final in this contest. Well, when I finaled, I was like, well, there's no way I'll win. I broke all the rules, remember that? Well, of course, they called my name. I went into shock. My friend had to hit me to get me to go up on stage. I forgot my shoes. It was kind of a mess. But what that did was then all of a sudden editors are calling my agent, and they're like, we want to see this. So she said I was going to wait until, I don't know if you know, but New York kind of goes on vacation in August. Yes. So she was going to wait till September to submit it. She said, I'm not waiting. I'm sending it right now. A week later, we had our first offer. There were 4 houses bidding on it. And it was just amazing. And right before we were going to send it to auction, my editor, the amazing Jennifer Enderlin at St. Martin's Press, she made a preempt offer, and we accepted it just because she's awesome. And I love Jennifer. I love my agent and my editor, and I just seriously just lucked out on the whole thing because they're amazing. So that's my story. And basically, it is a Cinderella story in that, I went from having nobody that would even touch my stuff to, having 8 offers and having 5 people wanting it, 5 houses wanting it, and all this stuff. It was amazing. Got a 6-figure 3-book deal. And the 3rd book, and this is why we went with Jennifer, just kind of makes best-selling authors. And the 3rd book hit New York Times. And so the 11th is coming out in January. So that's where I'm at. It's just amazing. Thank you. I'm so lucky. I can't even tell you. It just, honest to God, so much of this is just like a crapshoot. And it was timing, and everything like dominoes just fell into place. It was amazing. So I'll tell you a little bit about, basically, they're the Charlie Davidson series. The first one is First Grave on the right. So she's a female private investigator here in Albuquerque, and she was born the Grim Reaper. So it's paranormal and mystery, although, here's my mystery story. Turned in the first book, it was great. Turned in the second book, it was great. Turned in the 3rd book, and my editor said, can I call you? I was like, uh-oh. So she calls me, and she says, well, we're going along. She said, I love this story, but we're going along, and there's the bad guy, it's the guy, and we're going along, and it's still the guy, and we get to the end, and it's the guy. And she's like, it can't be the guy. And I'm like, but he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy through the whole thing. She said, Darynda, you write mystery. He can't be the bad guy. And I'm like, I write mystery? I had no idea. Nobody told me I wrote mystery. I had no idea. I mean, I was putting mystery in there, but I didn't know I wrote mystery. And so yeah, if you go into Barnes & Noble or Bookworks or wherever, I am shelved under mystery. I did not know that. So I learned that. I had to rewrite the whole book. That was really hard. I don't like doing that. I would recommend it. Find out what you write before you get it out there. Same. I thought I wrote paranormal romance. It's not romance, but there is a very strong romantic element. And the hero is really hot, so just say it. And so as far as film, before First Grave even came out, it sold to CBS, so that was very cool. They had it 3 years and didn't do anything with it, which I know how the film, I'm learning. I had learned quite a bit at that point, so I didn't really ever expect them to do anything with it, and they didn't. Then it sold to Warner Brothers Studio. They had it for 3 years as well, never did anything with it. So right now it is with a writer, director, producer dude who's kind of awesome here in Albuquerque, and he's working on the pilot, so we'll see. It'd be awesome. my dream is if it does ever go to film, I want it filmed in Albuquerque because it's set in Albuquerque. It makes a lot of sense. So that's our dream. Thank you. If we get it, we really want it set or filmed here. So, anywho, that's me in a nutshell. That's a really big nutshell, huh? Any questions on that part? Okay. Oh, yes.
Yeah, what year was this when you first got the offers?
Right. Oh, so I was going to tell you that. So it took me, so from the time I started writing seriously, as in I want to get published, it took me 7 years to sell on 3 manuscripts. So I sold in 2009, and then I was published in February 2011. My first contract, they wanted all 3 books finished before the first book came out, because they don't know me. They want to make sure I can, still do it. And so that's what happened. Yeah. Okay. So my talk, let's see where we're at. Oh, we're good. Okay. Is Seducing the Reader, the 4 Essential Elements of an Opening. So basically, every book I turned in from, one was fine. The first one was fine. I don't know how. That was just blind luck, I guess. Second, third, and fourth, my editor would come back, you're starting in the wrong place. You're starting in the wrong place. She kept telling me I was starting in the wrong place. And I'm like, I have read everything on this. I don't understand. How can I be starting in the wrong place? Okay, so here's what we're all told. Don't use a lot of description. Don't open with backstory. Don't open with the weather. Do open with action. Do introduce the story, theme, or problem. Do establish character or setting. Do excite your reader. Do set the tone or mood of the story. Do show the promise of your novel in the first sentence, in the first paragraph. Avoid prologues. Oh yeah, and hook your reader. Oh, is that all? And I have 1 page to do that? Okay. Yeah, that was really, that was intimidating, because the more I learned about openings, the more intimidated I became, which is why I'm really good at endings. And I still, thank you to Terry, she was saying in the first book that it really draws you in. Again, blind luck on that one. I don't know how I did it, but I appreciate it. I think my thing was Charlie, my main character. She's so fun to write, and she's just so quirky, and just a spaz, basically. And so she's just fun. And so when I started the book, I just started it with her, And I had this thing about people telling me rules. As you can tell, you might be able to tell I'm a bit of a rule breaker, because I broke all RWA rules, but I still, won in the end. But people kept saying, don't ever open your story with your character waking up.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's the worst thing you could do. Don't ever do that. I decided I was going to do that for the first 3 books. And I was going to do it in a completely different way, because I hate people telling me what to do. So the first book I started with my character waking up. There's a dead guy in the room.
Yeah.
So that made it fun, The second book is her waking up. And it's her best friend Cookie is waking up because something has happened. Her friend has disappeared, and And the third book, I sent it to my editor, and that's where she said, okay, Darynda, you're starting in the wrong place. She let me keep the second one, this book 2. But book 3, she's like, you're starting in the wrong place. Not that she was waking up again, but that now I understand. I wasn't orienting my reader. So when I had, in the second book, I had Cookie coming in and waking Charlie up, and she's all frantic and everything. It's hard to get oriented because she's waking up. She doesn't know what's going on, So basically, my editor was like, you have to orient your reader. Okay, so what I did was I did a ton of research on openings. And so this is not me. Everything I'm going to tell you today, I stole from everybody. I didn't know anything about it. So I'm going to give you my references really quick. So the first 5 pages by Noah Lewin, awesome. Goal, Motivation, and Conflict by Deb Dixon. Various Michael Haig references.
Are you going to put these up on the Sage or something?
Sure, I can send them.
Where's the Sage editor? Good.
I'll send you this.
Well, now you can roll them off.
Okay. Various Michael Haig references, and I'm going to say this is probably mostly from Michael Haig. He's awesome. He has so Michael Haig is a script doctor type guy. Yeah. So he like goes into like Hollywood scripts and fixes them. And he's worked with, huge Will Smith and Ben Affleck, all huge people. So he has a DVD on his website on openings. And that's where I learned a lot. He really, really helped me. And Plot and Structure by James Scott Bell. And I always have to name these others. On Writing by Stephen King because it's awesome. Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. And then I love classes and workshops. And if I had known about the workshop this afternoon, I would not have made other plans because I love that woman. I love you. You're awesome. I didn't know. Oh, I'm trying to get out of my plans right now. I've sent text messages. But one of the things I took 3 different classes, Story Masters, and that's Christopher Vogler, James Scott Bell, and Donald Moss. And that was amazing. It was 4 days of just going into story and structure and all this stuff. It was very, very good. Another one is Story Master. They really like this, by John Truby. And John Truby is another script doctor, but he applies all of his theories to novel writing too. And I learned so much from him. And then Margie Lawson, I absolutely love Margie Lawson. She's more, instead of structure, she's more like sentence and word choice. And so they're very different levels. You have the structure and all of that stuff, and then you have the very macro editing of a book. Okay. There's a striking mix of literary elements that have to be present on a book's first page for readers to keep turning pages. An intriguing character, suspense, a vibrant writing style. That's from Kirkus. I love that. And I think all of them obviously are very important. So how do you get that? It was always my question. Okay, and I remember when I was first writing, everybody kept saying, write fresh. What the hell does that mean, write fresh? Like, I did not understand it. So I will say, the more you read, which we're all big readers, the more you read, the more you're going to understand fresh writing. And the more you write, so you write something, and then you go back and read, and you can apply what they're doing to what you did. And one of the best places I learned stuff was judging contests. So in RWA, each chapter, not all chapters, but a lot of the chapters have their own contests. And that gets you in front of editors and in front of agents. So once you start learning the ropes, you realize, well, I'm going to enter this contest because that editor is the final judge, and that sort of thing. But judging the first round, it really helps you because you'll see mistakes that they made that you're making, but you don't see it in your own work. You see it in theirs. So that really helped me learn the craft, quite frankly. Okay. Your opening must transport the reader from her world into yours. To do this, the reader needs time to adjust. And this is where I was getting mucked up. So we had all of those things. I love the don't open with the weather thing too, because that's just silly. So I'm going to read one that opens with the weather. And it's gorgeous. It is by James Lee Burke, and it's Last Card to Elysian Fields. The first week after Labor Day, after a summer of hot wind and drought that left the cane fields dust-blown and spiderwebbed with cracks, rain showers once more danced across the wetlands. The temperature dropped 20 degrees, and the sky turned the hard, flawless blue of an inverted ceramic bowl. I think that is stunning, and that does so many things right there. It sets the mood. It tells you exactly what's going on with the mood and the tone are kind of interchangeable. But exactly what's going on with the weather, how is that going to play into this? It probably is at some point. I I love that. The sky turned a hard, flawless blue of an inverted ceramic bowl. Who thinks like that? It's so awesome. I don't. Anyway. So where should your story start? We all know the old adage that the opening should start when there is a change in the main character's life. That's the big thing. So in first grade, so Charlie Davidson is going about her crazy life because she's a Grim Reaper, and so she sees dead people everywhere, and she does her job, but she's also a private investigator. So she has all this stuff going on. But the big change in her life is that the hero enters the story. So that's where I started her story. Something has happened to set the main character on a different path than he or she was planning. In a romantic suspense, perhaps our heroine comes home to find her ex-boyfriend dead on her living room floor. That's a big change. In a paranormal, maybe she meets a dark stranger who insists she is destined to save the world. In a YA, our heroine could find herself being goaded into running for prom queen against the evil popular girl, the one who dumped Kool-Aid on her in grade school on purpose. So, all of these things are life changes and major, and so we may not think that running for prom queen is a big deal, but for a young adult it could be. So whatever change that is, it has to be major, it has to affect your character's life tremendously, it has to almost be like a life or death thing. So for a teenage girl, prom queen might be a life or death thing. They may think, oh, my life will be ruined if I don't win or something, You have to convince your reader that it is everything to your character. That's your job. Also, that what I'm learning is that our job is not grab the reader by the throat, not ripping her jugular out, trying to force her to turn the page and keep reading. According to Michael Haig, it is to seduce the reader into continuing, to lure her to the next word, to tempt her with the next sentence, the next page. So, your first and best bet in doing this, according to Noah Lukeman, is not by wowing her with action, but by wowing her with sharp, crisp writing. And again, the more you write, the more that'll sink in. Writing that is so fresh and appealing, it is impossible for her to stop reading. And again, so you will, if you're not at that point, you will get to the point where the minute you see fresh writing, you're going to be like, wow. You're going to be wowed by it. And I will say that Margie Lawson is really good at that, about teaching you to write fresh and use powerful words and to really pay attention to your word choices. And, they always have this thing about not using cliches. And so I decided that Charlie would use cliches every chance she got, but she'd have to change them. So again, rule breaker. So her cliche might be something, I can't even think of one. She has like 1,000, but she will take a cliche and twist it. So that's fun, because then you just add that fresh twist to it. Okay. Still, understanding your mission, should you accept it, will help. While the goal of the book is to create a positive emotional experience for the reader, big on the emotion, capital letters on emotion, the goal of an opening is to set the stage and to pull the reader in. And there are 4 goals of every opening. Actually, I added one. I added Margie Lawson's. She's going to kill me. But one is to draw the reader in. 2 is to create empathy for your main character. 3 is to set the tone of the story. 4 is to elicit emotion. Your primary objective is to elicit emotion. And 5 is, well, we kind of already read it, but Margie Lawson calls it the story promise. to promise your reader this is what this story is about. Okay, 1, drawing the reader in. Step 1 is to draw the reader in, and this means setting the stage. First, you have to orient your readers, or you risk losing them in a sea of confusion, which is what my editor kept trying to beat me over the head with. You can use detail and description. And I'm not talking about starting with the weather unless that's useful and it's, about your story. Think of, I like using movies instead of books because we kind of all watch the movies, but think of Twister. They started with the weather, but there's a good reason, really, really good reason, because it's about the weather. It is important in setting, if it's important in setting the tone of the story, or if it's important almost another character in the story, then definitely start with the weather. Here's an opening. This one, another opening. And again, Fred, where's Fred? I adore him. Hi, Fred. So he told me one time, he's like, he's heard this presentation. He's probably sleeping back there. But he said, you're talking about the opening, but you're reading the first lines and you're confusing people. And I'm sorry, Fred, I'm still doing that. So I'm not literally talking about the first line, but I am just kind of throwing out a couple of openings for you. So this is by Cornelia Funke and Reckless. The night breathed through the apartment like a dark animal. The ticking of a clock, the groan of a floorboard as he slipped out of his room, all was drowned by its silence. I think that's beautiful because, they say, start with action. Well, to me, action meant, bombs going off and guns blazing and, that whole thing. That's what I thought they meant by action. But what they mean by action is don't have it be stagnant. Really and truly don't start with a huge flashback. If you're going to do that, just write a prologue. And by the way, prologues are fine. Okay? My editor has actually had me write prologues when I didn't have one. So, that's wrong. So, but the night breathed through the apartment like a dark animal. Oh, that's so stunning. But there's action there. It's active. So maybe active would be the right choice there. So how do we draw the reader in? Description and detail. That's one way, like Cornelia did. Reflecting the character, which is setting the stage. So, I don't even like this part. This is a good part, and it's really important, but the other part's more important. So I'm going to skip it. So anyway, description and detail, set the stage, and there's different ways you can set the stage. Okay, so you can, let's say you start big. So, and again, we're just orienting the reader. That's really important, otherwise they're just confused and they don't know what's going on. Number 2 that I found out with starting with too much action, I read, the book was so good, but she really started in the wrong place. So she starts and she has this one car is chasing this other car and bullets are flying and the wife gets shot and the car wrecks and goes into the river, I think, or something. They were on a bridge and it falls into the river and the wife dies. And you know what? I could not have cared less because I didn't know the characters. I didn't care. I didn't know why should I care if she dies? I don't know who she is. She might be a bad person. So to me, that's when I really started to understand starting in the wrong place because we didn't know these characters, so we didn't care if they died. We didn't know, are the bad guys shooting or are the good guys? So you have to make us love your characters before you can put them in jeopardy. Okay? Because if we don't love them, we don't care that they're in jeopardy. We really don't. You have to make us care about them. So, I'm going to skip that. Okay, so that brings us to creating empathy for your main character. So step 2 in the process is to create empathy in your reader to make him or her really root for your protagonist. We don't read to observe the characters from a distance. We read to become the character and experience the conflicts and rewards they are experiencing. So one of the things, kind of a way, I don't know that it would be a cheat, but you've heard deep point of view. So even if if you write in third person, the Charlie books are actually in first person. So that's kind of cheating because we're in the protagonist's head immediately. I don't have to orient you to get you there. We're just there. Third person, you want to use deep point of view. So instead of saying, I hate having to come up with examples. Come on, Sarah. Example of deep point of view versus saying she felt hurt by his reaction. Oh, really? No. His reaction cut into her like a samurai sword, whatever you want to, that's your theme. You know what I mean? So the deep point of view, not felt. That puts us at a distance. So we're way over here. And yes.
Oh, you were talking about twisted cliches earlier. It's not rocket surgery is one of my favorites.
Oh, God. That's awesome. That's good. It's not rocket surgery. That's fantastic. Can I steal that? Okay. Just kidding. So anyway, that's one way, is to just get them in there immediately. We've got to be in your character's head immediately. And this is what I just said. We must create empathy before introducing any negative flaws in your character that will, again, distance us from the reader. So, let me think. I don't want to give anything away. So Reyes, I don't want to give anything away, but Reyes is something that's, I don't know.
Whose phone is that?
That's okay. So Reyes is an entity. We'll say that. He's an entity, and it's kind of has a negative connotation in our culture, right, what he is. So I had to really give him a lot of, I had to make him a really good guy before I brought up the fact that he was this kind of evil person. Otherwise, I might have lost a lot of readers, you know. So, and I actually think I still lost a lot of readers. Once they found out, they're like, oh my God, I can't read a book about that. So there are 5 ways to create empathy. And they are, and you need at least 2 of these. They are sympathy, jeopardy, likability, power, and humor.
And hammer?
Humor.
Oh, humor. Sorry.
And again, these are from Michael Haig. I didn't make any of this up. That DVD's awesome, seriously. So, again, use 2 of those. If you can do that, we're going to love your character. So like using sympathy to create a connection between the reader and the character. Perhaps something happened to your hero in the past that still plagues him and still causes him pain. So there's a book called The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. It's one of my favorites, historical romance. And basically Simon, our hero, Simon's father, celebrates his birth with church bells and champagne. The town is flowing with champagne. Everybody's just thrilled that finally the Duke had a son, you know, and it was just this huge thing. Only to find out Simon is flawed in his father's eyes. And his father never fully accepts him. So, of course, we're in love with Simon. Titanic. Rose has a domineering mother and a jerk fiance. So that is sympathy. Okay. Jeopardy is another way. If your heroine is in jeopardy, your readers will feel an instant connection. They will want her to persevere to be okay. And note, this does not have to be physical danger. It could be the loss of anything that is of vital importance to the hero. So physical would be like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know, it goes in the cave and he's in jeopardy pretty instantly. But we kind of get to know him a little bit before that jeopardy hits. We know he's kind of funny, you know. We know he's a nice guy. before the Jeopardy hits. Hunger Games. We know that Katniss is very poor. They live in a very oppressed society. They're practically starved by their government. They force children to fight to the death on live television. I mean, who comes up with this stuff? That's like crazy. I could never have written that book. And we also know that it's pretty much a death sentence. So then when, I don't want to give anything away, but surely everybody knows Hunger Games, yeah? Okay. So when Katniss's little sister, they pull her name's in the bowl one time. Katniss is in there like, 300 times or something. They pull her little sister's name and she volunteers. She takes her place. We love Katniss right there. Non-physical would be something like in Rain Man. So Charlie has a shipment of exotic cars, but the EPA is holding them up and a buyer on the phone is threatening to pull out of the deal. So Charlie is in danger of losing his business. So that's a Jeopardy too. Another one is likability. Just making the character likable will also create a bond. Again, with Raiders of the Lost Ark, we like him instantly just because of who he is and he's funny and all that stuff. We like nice people as long as they are not boring. Spunk is always a plus. Michael Hake says one trick to show that your hero is likable is to show him being liked by others. To show them doing something nice. My favorite representation of this was in Runaway Jury, if you guys saw that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So the boss comes in. So there's this office and the boss comes in. And normally what happens when the boss comes in? Oh crap, the boss is here, we gotta get to work, Not this guy. The boss comes in, everybody's like, oh, the boss is here. They're all happy to see him. You're like, this is weird. This is different. Everybody in that office loved this guy, loved him. He was so nice to everybody. He treated them all with just tremendous respect. He was fun. He had this beautiful secretary, but he was in love with his wife. She was having, I think, a birthday or something, and they were talking about, anyway. He was like the nicest guy. So everybody loved him, and then a gunman comes in and kills him. So that made us really sad. But it hooked us, because then we're like, what in the world? We liked him, so we cared that he died. It was important to us. If he had just started it with, oh, here's this guy in this office, and this guy comes in and shoots him, nobody cares. I mean, it still probably would have been a decent movie, but nobody really cared about him. Okay. Power is another great one, and there's something naturally appealing about power. Power for people who are nice are a draw. Power doesn't necessarily mean money or a superpower. If someone is very, very good at something, that is a form of power. A sniper who can make a shot that only half a dozen people in the world can make is a power. So there are two forms of power. There's superpower, and under that is superheroes and action heroes. And those are two kind of different things. So Iron Man and Superman, those are like superheroes. And then action heroes are like Indiana Jones and John McClane from Die Hard. So even though they're everyday guys, they're adventurous and they put themselves into perilous situations. So that's the difference between an action hero and an everyday hero. So John McClane is a cop, so he's in a perilous situation anyway. Then you have the everyday hero. This hero is more likely to be thrust into situations. They don't consider themselves anything special. That would be like Katniss from Hunger Games. Okay, she would be an everyday hero, and she really was. I mean, she was risking her life hunting so that her family didn't starve. So that makes her a hero right there. Frankie from $1 Million Baby. Basically, so Frankie was Clint Eastwood character. And then Morgan Freeman was his best friend. And Morgan Freeman starts out and he says, I only know one guy I'd be afraid to fight. And that was Frankie. So he was very good at what he does. And so that's a form of power. So even though he's older now and he's not boxing anymore, we know that at one time he was a badass. And the last is humor. So while, see how much time I have. So while humor is subjective, it's still a great way to form that connection between reader and character we are seeking. You probably don't watch the same movies I do, but if anybody's seen Van Wilder, it is a prime example. I encourage people to watch it. There's one disgusting scene I'm going to admit right here. It's really gross, but it's a prime example of a nice guy with humor. He is this college guy who he's the most popular guy on campus. Everybody loves him. He's the partier and all this stuff, but it doesn't matter who you are. He's there for you. Like they call this one kid the sick boy, and he takes him food every day. This kid is sick with something new every day in his little dorm room. It's funny. And, but it's like they did such an amazing job with that. And what's funny is that when you use humor, your character does not have to be nice. We're still gonna like him quite a bit. So if you think of Jack Nicholson in As Good as It Gets, he wasn't a nice guy, but he was funny, so we liked him. I don't know, whoever, Logan, Veronica Mars, Damon in the Vampire Diaries. This is normally like for romance writers. We kind of watch the same thing. Paranormal people. Boyd Crowder in Justified. He's like the best bad guy ever because he's funny. And so even though he's a bad guy and we are supposed to hate him, we end up just loving this guy because he's hilarious. And he's a really good bad guy.
Bad Santa.
Yes. That's an excellent, I need to write that down. Bad Santa is excellent because, man, you talk about an unlikable character, but he's just so funny. So anyway. Okay, again, so you should use at least 2 of those to get us to empathize with your main character. 3 is establishing the tone. The tone encompasses the attitude toward the subject. It may be all these things: formal, informal, intimate, solemn, somber, playful, however you want the tone. That's got to be established right off the bat. This is interesting. I don't know that anybody really cares, but tone is what the author feels toward the subject, and mood is what the reader feels. I thought it was interesting. So again, this can be done by showing the ominous thunderclouds overhead, describing the sultry darkness of the night, or describing how disturbing the loud music is at the nightclub your heroine has ducked into in an attempt to ditch the man she believes is stalking her. So right there, you've set the tone. You can also use dialogue. There are some people who are just incredible at dialogue. Julia Quinn, Molly Harper, Janet Vonovich, Joss Whedon, J.R. Ward, just to name a few. Those are fantastic. And number 4 is eliciting emotion. So if you've done all of the above, chances are you've already accomplished this last must-have. Eliciting emotion is a given if the heroine is in jeopardy and we care about her. If our hero has just been wounded or longs for something he believes he can never have. But just to throw fuel onto the fire, to really hook your reader, you might throw in a quick twist the reader didn't see coming. So perhaps your heroine, who is a nice girl and who is really liked by her colleagues and who seems to have her act together, is actually living a lie. She is on the run and has a secret past that is so dark and so disturbing, she is deathly afraid the truth will get out. The bad guy will find her. And while she is checking her email that morning, she receives one from someone who knows her true identity and is threatened to reveal her secret to the highest bidder. Voila, emotion. So we've already set up that we like her, she's nice, she's a great person to be around, she's fun, now she's in jeopardy. And number 5 is the story promise. And I'm not gonna go into that because if you've done all of that, you've probably already said the story promise, but you want to let the reader know the point of your story pretty quickly. So if you write mystery and you know it, you probably want to introduce the mystery pretty quickly. Only if you know it, though. So that's...
Can you make that a mystery?
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes.